Austria, Spain, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the Union of Soviet Socialist Russia, and Yugoslavia are multilingual, whilst 3, namely Belgium, Cyprus, and Czechoslovakia, are bilingual. Of these 9 multilingual and bilingual countries, 5 have a federal type of constitution. We are getting where we're really going. They are Austria, Czechoslovakia, Switzerland, and the USSR and Yugoslavia. Or, as is well known, with the exception of Switzerland, each of these countries had for centuries been governed under a unitary system, which, whilst it lasted, evoked considerable bitterness and hostility from the minority linguistic groups. This actually happened in the Eastern region. When the government of the Eastern region under Nnamdi Azikiwe was going to stop news relays in Efik, because of course they are minority, and what was happening at the time was that minority languages did not have as much attention, which is what would happen if you have a unitary system in a multi-ethnic space, like what Son is asking me earlier. The way you govern a multi-ethnic state is not how you govern your family, where all of you speak the same language. You have different ethnicities, different languages. You have to acknowledge them, and you have to acknowledge them regardless of their number. So you can't say, oh, this one is just so cool. It's not as much as Yoruba. It's as important as the Yoruba person. The Ibibio person doesn't keep quiet because an Igbo person is speaking. Every single ethnicity, every single language is considered important enough to be given whatever it is that they require to safeguard or to protect them or to preserve what they have. Let's continue. We're where we're going right now. We're going to stay with Europe for a while. Let me just read as much as possible, then we get to the conversation. So please stay with me. After the advent of a socialist regime, Russia and her sister countries in Europe and Asia adopted a federal constitution in which the constituent states are organized on the basis of language. After the end of the Second World War, Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia followed the example of the USSR. They too went federal and gave each linguistic group a separate autonomous state. On the breakup of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in 1918, Austria adopted a federal constitution. The country was divided into 8 states, the operative factors being divergence of nationality and language. As regards the latter, the Slovene and the Croat-speaking minorities were given their own separate states. Carinthia for the Slovene-speaking minority and Syria and Burgenland for the Croat-speaking minority. In spite of the most trying vicissitudes of Hitler's Anschluss, the Second World War and foreign military occupation, when Austria regained its sovereignty in 1955, it readopted the former federal system. South Tyrol, the predominantly Italian-speaking territory, which has been a bone of contention between Austria and Italy since 1918, is now the 9th state of Austria. How did they determine these states? Based on language. This is what sane people do. You have to be insane, and I'm not sorry to say it. You have to be insane to be threatened by a people speaking their indigenous language in the indigenous space. You are insane. And I'm not sorry, although I'm sorry for things like that, but I'm not sorry. Everywhere in the world, they consider this as part of the factors in creating states. It's not a threat to you, it is protection of the owners of the space. And these are also states. It's one Austria, it's one USSR, it's one Switzerland, they are all one. Nigeria is not the only one country in the world. Is it not one Nigeria? I can go anywhere. In one Nigeria is also one Austria. Even when you have minorities, they got a state just for themselves where they could speak, and it was done based on linguistics. Somebody says the nation first. Yoruba is the nation I'm talking about right now. Nigeria is not a nation in the sense of how nations are built. I'm going to read something to you from Path to Nigerian Freedom before we go today. Nigeria is a collection of nations. Yoruba is a nation on its own within a sovereign state that is Nigeria. For instance, when you move to the UK, all the groups in the UK are countries. Google it right now. How many countries are in the United Kingdom? Google it right now. Don't say I said it. Don't look for states. Look for, I'm using the word countries. Nigeria, we are illiterate for the most part. We just speak English. We don't know jack. You are telling me now that one nation first. What is nation first? sacrifice your identity because of something that somebody created in 1900. Meanwhile, I have something way beyond what they have. Let's go back to what we're reading. In fact, let me read the Austro-Hungarian Empire again. You know what? I'll try as much as possible not to break. I may not be able to keep my promise, but let me try. Of these 9 multilingual and bilingual countries, 5 have a federal type of constitution. They are Austria, Czechoslovakia, Switzerland, the USSR, and Yugoslavia. All is well known, with the exception of Switzerland. Each of these countries had for centuries been governed under a unitary system, which, whilst it lasted, evoked considerable bitterness and hostility from the minority linguistic groups, like we're having in Nigeria right now. What you're having in Nigeria right now is evoking a lot of hostility and bitterness. Why do we want this? We don't like the concept of nature. Just work with nature. No, you must prove to me that you are one Nigeria. Like, say you go give me money. After the advent of a socialist regime, Russia and her sister countries in Europe and Asia adopted a federal constitution in which the constituent states are organized on the basis of language. I'm coming. I want to highlight it. After the end of the Second World War, Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia followed the example of the USSR. They too went federal and gave each linguistic group a separate autonomous state. On the breakup of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in 1918, Austria adopted a federal constitution. The country was divided into 8 states. The operative factors being divergence of nationality and language. In other words, ethnic nationality and language formed the basis of state creation in Austria. The Federal Constitution of Switzerland dates back to 1847. The factors which decided the makers of the constitution in favor of federalism were divergence of nationality again. This type of book written by Papa is the reason they call him bigot. Yeah, because they are dumb. So these are the basics of the federalism that they had in Switzerland. The factors which decided the makers of the constitution in favor of federalism were: number 1, divergence of nationality; number 2, geographical separateness; and number 3, linguistic differences. All the 4 languages of Switzerland, including Romance, which is spoken by about 50,000 people in a population of 5.7 million, are recognized as official languages, not pidgin English. Somebody came here the other day, said we should use, just now, a couple of minutes ago, that we should have pidgin. These are beer parlor thoughts coming from graduates, by the way. May God not make you just waste our parents' school fees. All the 4 languages of Switzerland, including the one that only 50,000 people speak in a population of 5.7 million people, all the languages are referred to as official languages. In this connection, it must be pointed out that in Austria, the USSR, and Yugoslavia, every language is recognized as the official language in the states in which it is predominant. Who bewitched us in this continent? God. It's not like we don't have people with these ideas, it's just that we have more clowns and selfish, terrible human beings who would not just do the basic thing that every human being in the world does. It's only here that we'll be acting as if we know more than God. See now, that's why I said that anybody that ever comes to me and says, see what they are doing in Europe, I always ask them, what's the kind of structure in Europe? We travel to Europe, we enjoy the system, we don't know how it was built. That is one of the major problems of Africa. We enjoy systems that we don't know how to build. You know why? Because once we get to Europe, America, all these countries, all we see is, and by the way, it's not our fault, it's what happens when you have to survive. You have to work, you have to make money. We are not observing the systems. We're not observing how things are done. We're not observing how they built themselves. And we just come back and say, and there's plane in Kinikon, there is train in Kinikon, there is no train in Nigeria. Well, there are trains in Nigeria now, thank God. But generally speaking, you know, you need to have more connections, more network, real network, for instance, different parts of Nigeria. Oh, I see this in Dubai, I don't see it in Nigeria. What's the system they are working with? That's the foundation of your society. It's not about the train, it's not about the plane, it's not about the infrastructure, it's about the systems. If the right systems are put in place, your society will change completely in one generation. We've seen it. You see it in China. All those China went to China. China did not go to China to be telling China how to go to China. China stayed in China and developed systems. Just be hearing all these talking points. China went to China. It's not about just repeating China. It's about the fact that China built systems. Austria built systems. USSR built systems. Switzerland built systems. Systems are the foundation for your growth. No structure, no system, you will just be crying. All the following, okay, I've read it again. In this connection, it must be pointed out that, and this is actually very important, in Austria, the USSR, and Yugoslavia, every language is recognized as the official language in the states in which it is predominant, while Czech and Slovak are both recognized as official languages in Czechoslovakia. In other words, if you go to the east, don't tell them English is Nigeria's official language. It should be Igbo. It is the predominant language in that space. Nobody should tell you as a sane person that when you get to Yoruba land, you cannot be speaking your language or say you must understand English. Even if I understand English, if I don't want to speak, what will you do about it? If there's no need for it, I don't speak it. Let's continue. And by the way, this book was published in 1966. You read sincerely, guys. I read that book sometimes and I feel like crying. Sometimes I actually shed a tear or two. Because you wonder, how can a person have this kind of mindset in the 60s, in the 40s, starting with Path to Nigerian Freedom? Why didn't people just flow with this thing? Do you know where we would be? We don't get structure for this country. We don't get structure. Kobo. Not just English. You just speak English. All of us just speak Oyibo. Let's continue. In this connection, it must be pointed out that in Austria, the USSR, and Yugoslavia, every language is recognized as the official language in the state in which it is predominant, whilst Czech and Slovak are both recognized as official languages in Czechoslovakia. As we have noted, Belgium and Cyprus are bilingual states, but they have a unitary type of constitution. Both of them are eloquent examples of the cardinal error inherent in man's efforts to make a success of a unitary constitution in a country where there are two or more territorially separate linguistic groups. So far, Belgium does not find it all too easy to carry on under a unitary constitution. We say this because the Dutch-speaking Flemings continue to demand a separate autonomous region for themselves within the framework of a Belgian federation. As recently as 15th February 1962, a law was enacted by the Belgian Parliament which provided for a fixed linguistic boundary between the Flemish-speaking and the French-speaking areas of the country. This is what we're talking about. That people are calling us bigots and tribalists. A fixed linguistic boundary between the Flemish-speaking and French-speaking areas of the country. They did not say it is one Belgium, we must go and learn French. No, I don't want to lose, which is why I tell Pan-Africanists that they are not thinking straight when they mention that Swahili nonsense. Let all of us speak Swahili. Everybody in the world is working with nature. You are working against nature, therefore you don't progress.